My name is Cody Kraus, and I'm a real estate broker owner that's obsessed with everything real estate. Investing, building, selling, developing, farming, you name it. I've been doing this since I was 18 years old, and I've learned a ton through trial and error, and I've met some of the coolest people ever. This is a show where I invite these people on to talk about their experiences and mine, plus everything else real estate. Let's go. All right, well, welcome back to another episode of the Everything Real Estate Show. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. And today I have a guest that's familiar face around Windsor, Essex, Mr. Vince Castagna. For anybody that doesn't know Vince, who is Vince?
Oh, thanks for having me, Cody. I don't know how familiar of a face I am, but hopefully I am somewhat familiar. Vince on a personal level, I'm a father, husband, father of three. I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and my 7-year-old just turned 7. So that's honestly, these days that seems like that's job number one.
It's a lot of it.
That takes up, honestly, just as much as the day job in terms of time. Kids are busy, lots of activities, sports, school activities, everything. On the professional side, UCC Mortgage Company, we're a full-fledged mortgage brokerage, residential and commercial. The way I like to explain it is we're kind of like two businesses in one. We have the mortgage brokerage side and the mortgage administration side. What that is, everybody understands the mortgage brokerage side. We do residential and commercial. On the administration side, we have a special license, and what that allows us to do is we have investors that invest money with us, and we lend it out in the form of private mortgages. That private mortgage belongs to the investor, but we manage that investment on their behalf from A to Z.
So. Yeah. Now, the way that I understand that, or it's been explained to me, is Cody doesn't give out private mortgages. However, if Cody wanted to give out private mortgages, and let's say that I gave one to Vince, and Vince is behind on his mortgage, if I didn't have an administrator, I'd be like, hey, Vince, when are you going to pay, man? It's been a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever, right? And with an administrator, the payments come through the administration company and then are paid out to the investor, the person that owns the mortgage. But also, when you're a borrower and you got a private mortgage, it's not the ideal scenario to stay in a private mortgage for forever because it's usually a higher rate. So the whole idea is maybe I had bruised credit or my lending ratios were over, so I had to go private to make this one deal happen. And I need to stay private for a year or 2 years or 3 years or maybe only 6 months, but eventually I want to get out of it. And if it wasn't administrated, there'd be no paperwork to show consistency of payments, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You nailed it. So on the administration side, yes, like I said, it becomes a passive investment to the investor.
So no personal relationship with the person the money's going to.
Exactly. So the mortgage is registered in your name, and it's in trust for UCC Mortgage Company. So it's registered UCC Mortgage Co. in trust for Cody Kraus.
Yep.
So it is your mortgage. It's your asset. That in trust allows us to do all the administration for you. So yeah, we collect payments. We make sure property taxes are up to date. We make sure insurance is up to date. If there is late payments, we chase them down. If there are situations where mortgages start to go behind or go bad, if in a worst case scenario you do have to start the collections process, we handle all that for you, keeping you up to date the entire time.
Yep.
But the goal is to make it as passive of an investment as possible. What's nice is, being an administrator and a broker, for the most part, you hit the nail on the head. You shouldn't be in a private mortgage for an extended period of time. 12 months, 18 months, maybe at the most. So up front, we know, okay, we're only doing a mortgage privately if we know, 12 to 18 months down the road, there's an exit plan. Yep. There's a conventional play available for that borrower. And there's so many reasons why people have to go private. It's not always, because they're just not, credit worthy or bank worthy. They're just, for whatever reason, they're not bank worthy today. Doesn't mean they won't be, a year down the road.
Yeah, could be bruised credit, divorce. We've even seen it with rural properties where big banks look at a postal code that has an O in it.
Yeah.
And it could be Wheatley, it could be McGregor, it could be parts of Tecumseh, and they go, oh, that's rural, we can't touch that. And it's like, well, We're 10 minutes from a hospital. Like Costco's 15 minutes down the road. It's not that rural, right?
I know. Honestly, we actually eat that up. That's a big part of our portfolio. We do so we also have a big, commercial brokering piece to our business. So we do and we do a lot in the agriculture space. So we're in Leamington, Kingsville a ton. And yeah, a lot of times you wouldn't believe it, but yeah, even Leamington falls into that, where if it's a, kind of a farmhouse sitting on, so many acres, yeah, a lot of lenders won't even consider it. So we'll do it privately initially. And, usually what happens is somebody comes to us because they're at a time. They, it's at the 11th hour, they're buying the house and
Closes
they
tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So there are lenders that will do the rural properties, just not the lenders that they were talking to at that point in time. So
Yep.
we'll close on it privately and then, refinance it out after.
Yep. Now, you were formerly with a credit union. Was that kind of your intro into mortgages when you were working with them, and then you loved it? So look at your own thing as a broker, or how exactly did that come about?
Yeah. So I was with a credit union for a long. I was with a bank for a long time. Actually, so just give you a little background. I'm a CPA. I started actually in public accounting initially.
Okay.
Then got into commercial banking. I worked with two of the big five banks in town, and then spent the bulk of my corporate career with the credit union, about 12 years. Always in commercial lending. So I got to know obviously got to know the commercial world very well. And one of my commercial clients was also, he had a lot of commercial property around town, but also a very active private lender.
Yep.
So I got to know the private lending world very well through him, just managing his accounts, and we struck up a really good relationship and became friends. So I got to know that world quite well, and it intrigued me. I also had on the commercial side, a lot of wealthy clients who I noticed were always looking for a different way to invest their money, right? Yep. The entrepreneurs even want to invest, entrepreneurial. They don't like the plain vanilla investment. So,
and they like title.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? They understand, real estate. They understand a mortgage. So, whereas somebody, you say the word private mortgage, they're like, oh, was that risky? They look at it differently. They're okay, so I'm lending 65% against that house, and I have the mortgage. Okay, that seems safe.
They don't pay.
Yeah,
I have that house.
Yeah, exactly. That's how they look at it, which is the right way. But where was I going with that? So I got to learn a little bit of that private mortgage world. I saw that on the back end, I had relationships with all these these people with some excess money to put in play. And then there was, so we rebranded to UCC Mortgage Co, but historically it was, or still is legally, Unimore Capital Corporation. So John Battaglia, who was the previous owner who I purchased the business off of, was he was mostly a residential mortgage broker, but would get the odd commercial opportunity. So I developed a relationship with John because he would send me his commercial deals while I was at the credit union.
Yep.
And so one day I said, John, let's grab lunch. And I just wanted to pick his brain about, because I knew they had this mortgage administration license, and I just wanted to know a little bit more about it. And more so thinking like, okay, I was kind of getting tired of the corporate world and working working for the man. So I was thinking of like opportunities, and I pitched to John. I'm like, what if I create my own little fund, I have a group of investors, and I manage the fund for them, and Unimore manages that for us, or administers it for us.
Yep.
And John at the time would have been his late 60s, and I think looking back now, like I think his eyes just lit up because he was getting to that age, didn't have a succession plan, and he kind of slow played it, but started putting the seed in my brain about eventually just buying
brokerage,
buying Unimore off him, and it did it. And honestly, once I once the light bulb did go off in my head, then it moved fast. So, and then I was able to, why it worked is, they had, Unimore had the private mortgage reputation, had the broker's license. So had, access to all the same residential lenders everybody else did. But they were just focused on privates. So I saw an opportunity there where I'm like, okay, we're already established in the private mortgage space. I bring the commercial piece to it. Had some residential agents that I knew that would come over with me and kind of build that piece of the business as well.
Which is not just private; it's like regular lending too, right? People that just want to shop a regular mortgage, an A mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. So that's yeah. So that was the when we took over, I feel like there was this misconception that Unimore only did private mortgages, but no, we did we have access again to all the same conventional lenders that everybody else does. They just
including like 4 or 5 of the regular banks in Canada.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, there's within the broker channel, you have Scotiabank, TD, BMO, and then multiple monoline lenders, like the First Nationals of the world people are familiar with. Yep. There's 40 plus lenders. So yeah, that was just, again, John was in his late 60s, was more kind of winding down the business. So at one point in time, they were very active across the board, commercial, residential, privates. Then, he just started to focus on the private. So anyways, I saw this opportunity to really, take on this business and grow it back to, what it once was and even then some. And, it's worked out well. It's honestly, it's gone according to plans so far. I think we've really built up a reputation in the commercial space as a commercial broker. The private side is going well, and like I said, we brought on some agents recently that focus strictly on the institutional side of the residential side. So that's gone well too. So yeah, things are good.
Cool. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and David Chilton, like the Wealthy Barber.
Yeah, Wealthy Barber. Yeah.
So Wealthy Barber came out probably in the 90s. First time I heard it referenced, I was in like grade 6. I had an awesome teacher, Mr. Marintet, and he was building a new house, and it's in this luxury neighborhood, and he built the smallest house that the neighborhood covenants would let him build in that house in the neighborhood. And so we're talking to him about it, and it's kind of funny because he was driving this beater old Honda Civic hatchback, and we're like, so you're driving a beater car, you're building a home in the nicest neighborhood in town, like, what's going on here? He goes, well, it's Wealthy Barber. You buy the smallest home and the nicest street. Like, it's just, and so I remember hearing him tell me about a few of those principles, like way back in grade 6. And then I actually got a chance to hear him speak at a real estate conference not too long ago, because he had written the book, The Wealthy Barber Returns.
Yeah.
And now he's actually redoing The Wealthy Barber to bring it into today's terms, because now you have the first-time homebuyer savings account, right? TFSAs became a thing since The Wealthy Barber came out. So he's actually redoing the whole book. And so now he's doing like this big push to get back into social media, because he's relaunching the book and wants to make it relatable again, right? And so the other day I heard him on a podcast, the Canadian Real Estate Investor podcast. And one thing that he said like totally resounded with your whole story about buying Unimore right now and mine buying the company that I bought 2 years ago, is he said there's a lot less of an opportunity to invest in real estate right now because of how expensive it's gotten compared to, it was a lot easier 10 years ago, right? Is what it is. Probably not going to come down substantially and all of a sudden get easy overnight. LTB, that's its own mess right now. The landlord-tenant board, they're trying to make some changes with Bill 60 and all that kind of stuff. But he said one of the biggest opportunities right now in Canada is buying a business from somebody who doesn't have a succession plan. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I totally see it all around me, because a lot of times you have someone in their 60s, they've built up this business, and maybe they have kids that don't want anything to do with the business, or they saw, all the sweat and time that mom and dad put into running the business, said, I just want to, clock out at 5 and everybody leaves me alone on the weekend, don't want anything to do with the business. Or the parents even said, trust me, you don't want anything to do with the business, go get educated or something like that, right? But now all of a sudden there's all these people that have built up, like, they've built into this career for 30 years, 40 years, 25, whatever it is, and there's no one to take it over, right? You can have a great manager and employee, but that doesn't mean that they're sitting under your wing, ready to run the business.
Yeah.
They might not have that appetite for risk and all that kind of stuff. And so what he was saying is one of the greatest opportunities for young people right now in Canada is to buy an existing business that doesn't have a succession plan. And I'm like, I totally think he's right. And I think the opportunity there too is that a lot of people don't know how to finance it. If the business has been around 30, 40 years, good chance there's not a lot of debt on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner's probably willing to do private financing on the purchase of it. If he really believes in the vision of the person, a young person that's trained up under him or develop a good relationship, a lot of times they're willing to actually be the bank for that person. Because guess what? They want to see their business do well. They put their blood, sweat, and tears into it for 3 decades or whatever it's been, right? And so they want to see the succession of it go. They want to see it keep helping the community that they've been in and all that kind of stuff. And it makes a ton of sense. And I'm curious if that's really catching along like all over the country, or if that's just something we're seeing happen here more locally. I don't know if you see a whole lot of that come through your doors.
Yeah, I do. You know what? And you're spot on. Like, I'll say this. I had this, I don't know whether it's limiting belief, whatever you want to call it, but before I bought, Unimore, I would have said, all right, because I again, being in the commercial finance world, I've seen a lot of good big businesses, and most of the time, if it's a good business, there is a son, a daughter, or somebody lining up, knocking on the door to buy it,
or private equity fund,
or private, in the bigger end, the private equity. Yeah. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, if a business is just falling on my lap, it's probably not a good one. You know what I mean? But making the move I made, I realize now, I'm like, and listen, I could I have started it from scratch? Sure. It would have been a challenge to, especially that administration license, to get that. But I could have. But, I was able to skip so many steps. There are so many,
you already have your trust accounts. You have goodwill in the community that's been here for however many years.
Absolutely. Good people who understand the business, employees. It allowed me to just immediately focus on what I was already good at. And that's bringing in good investors, good clients, dealing with lenders. I didn't have to worry about building that foundation, that day-to-day business, right?
Plus someone to train you that's got your best interests in mind too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Especially, and not projecting anything on you, but like when I bought the company, there is some vendor financing in it. So it's also like, well, we want to see it do well.
Yeah.
Because that's part of our retirement now too.
Because I got to do well too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But on the financing end, believe it or not, like right now, especially, now that, I guess there's a little bit of uncertainty in the real estate world, and some banks are pumping the brakes a little bit. They're actually financing, business purchases quite aggressively.
The banks are. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the banks
so they're
like
looking
those
at businesses more so than real estate right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if
investment real estate.
Yeah, especially investment real estate. They like that if it's got a history, especially if the buyer, there's good synergies there with the buyer. It's a strategic buyer. They'll finance those, and they'll finance them quite aggressively, actually.
Track record.
Yeah. So we're seeing quite a few of those, and not necessarily all big businesses either, like a lot of small mom and pop shops too. But to your point, I would always, the vendor take back financing is a lot of people don't know that that's there, but listen, even me, who's, I played in this world, whether I was shy, I don't know, but I didn't ask John to hold any sort of financing. Looking back now and having conversations with him, he would have.
Well, and so
I was fortunate that I knew the banking landscape and was able to get my own financing, but it would have been a lot easier just to go through him.
Yeah, I mean, typically less hoops to jump through, but also then there can be a side benefit to the seller where it can be a delay of capital gains over a certain number of years too, right?
Yeah, great point. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So interesting. Now we're recording this in December of 2025. It's been, an interesting 3 years. So we're in Windsor, Essex County. It's funny. I was just at a conference in Toronto, and so people are asking, how's the market here? And you listen to anybody in Toronto, and it's like worst real estate market we've ever seen in our lives and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, Windsor was studied, and it was said that we were the third most affected city by tariffs. Um, we have the highest unemployment in the country right now at just shy of 11%. Our home sale prices have not moved in 3 years. They're actually higher right now than they were in 2021. We're about 3 or 4% higher. And you say that to people in the GTA, and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, we have not recovered to 2021. But I think because we started from a lower point, it helped us big time.
Mhm.
There's a lot of retirees here. But something that's making a lot of headlines around the country right now is, well, foreclosures and power of sales, all that kind of stuff, it's on the rise like crazy. And I'm sure as a percentage it is, but as a rule of thumb, Canadians typically pay their mortgage even when times are tough. So even if it says, they're increasing at 100%, what was the basis it started from in the first place? Like substantially less than 1%, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. So we, we're a broker, but we're kind of a lender too, right? I mean, we have our own portfolio mortgages that we administer for other people. So I have my own, little sample size there to play with. And I can tell you, oddly enough, like our book is in pretty good shape. Like
Even on the private stuff.
on the private side, yeah, which is the higher risk stuff. If there's gonna be problems, it would be in, you would think it would be in that book. And it's, we're a 50-year-old company, established in 1974. There's a lot of history there, and our book has grown significantly over the last, several years, and it's pretty consistent with all our previous years. We're our delinquencies
are
pretty good.
And foreclosures are all of a sudden just skyrocketing.
No, not at all.
Now, you wouldn't necessarily see it like when you broker a deal, then that relationship gets handed to the lender directly to the client, right? They take over that relationship. Now, you would still have a database where when they're coming up for renewal, I would imagine, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Are you privy to any of the conversations at that point after you broker a deal for someone?
If it's our job to try to stay involved. Like, you try to, if you broker a deal to a bank or, to a monoline lender, they treat it as that's their customer, right? But what I tell my agents, and we preach, it's our client too. It was our client first. We just put them with that lender.
Yeah.
So no, like if a mortgage goes into default and it's with Scotiabank, for example, we don't get notice of that.
Yeah.
But we try to keep those relationships with our clients to and be familiar enough with their situation to say, hey, if you are in trouble with Scotiabank, well, come back to us because we might have other options for you, right?
Yeah, we can save you from going power of sale.
Yeah, exactly. But even honestly, even across the institutional clients, to your point, Canadians, they'll scratch and claw and do whatever they have to do to pay their mortgage.
I mean, you got to live somewhere, and I feel like so I started in 2011, so I was still dealing with some of the aftermath of the 08-09 recession, right? And that was really not a big thing across Canada. It was a pretty big thing in Windsor, Essex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was like, well, if I can't pay the mortgage, bank takes the house, like I can always go rent something. Only rent was like $800, $900. Now it's $2,500.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe my mortgage payment wasn't even $2,500. Rent might actually be more expensive than somehow staying here and having yard sales every weekend to pay the mortgage.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I gotta ask you a question. You made that comment about, so I didn't realize that the average price of houses has gone significantly lower in the GTA versus here.
Yep.
How much of that has to do with the condo market, do you think? Is that a big piece of it?
Yeah. So if you isolate condos from single families and look at, or even semis in downtown Toronto, there's still a really good market for single family homes and semi-detached in Toronto. It's just that condos have flooded it. And if you listen to anybody that's involved in the GTA market, they'll tell you the same thing that created it is the same thing that's the downfall of it. And so the thing is, with building a condo, your planning phase might start 10 years before you put a shovel in the ground. Then in order for a bank to pick up the deal and finance the build, or multiple banks to pick up the deal and finance the build, you have to sell, 60, 70% of the units ahead of time, because they want to make sure that if we're loaning you $400 million to build this high-rise tower, that that they're sold, right?
Yeah.
Only problem is who typically buys condos, right? You would
Investors.
think like first-time home buyers. Only first-time home buyers, they're, hey, we just got engaged. Let's go look for a house.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, there's a condo down the street that's about to start pre-selling and they're going to be available to move into in 5 years. Well, no, we want a place to live in now, right? So naturally, the people that are going to pre-buy the condos are investors. Otherwise, they're not going to buy 5 years out, right? And if I was going to buy a house 5 years out, it's because I would think, okay, well, my family's aging. Maybe we'll have more kids or whatever. So I'll build this single family home and commit to that 5 years out. Well, not condos. The only people that commit to condos 5 years out are investors.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously became aware of who their client is that they're building condos for. And basically the investors are like, okay, we don't need bigger and bigger and bigger condos. We just need condos. Like 800 square feet isn't going to rent for that much different than 700 square feet. But if I'm paying $1,200 a square foot for this condo, it's a substantial savings to go from 800 square feet to 700. So it kept getting more ridiculous. And all of a sudden they're building 300 and 400 square foot condos. I heard about one where the units were 250 square feet.
Jeez.
Right. And so you're committing to these 5 years out, but
You're
nobody
cooking
actually,
from your bed.
nobody actually wants to live in those, right? They're basically
No.
hotel rooms, maybe
Yeah.
even smaller. So no end users actually want to live in those. And so when all of a sudden interest rates go up, number of sales goes down, prices are going down. Well, now all of a sudden there's no allure to start buying these condos. So even though they had 65 or 70% of them pre-sold with deposits, if the value fell during the pace of construction lower than what the initial contract was, and all of a sudden their deposits diminished, well, why would I even want to close on it at this point, right? So now all of a sudden you have this glut of inventory that's nothing that anybody actually wants to live in, that was built for investors who have left the game. And if you follow Ben Rabideau, Edge Analytics, he follows population growth, right? And it's mostly through immigration. And Canada doesn't have great data on house sales, on immigration, on any of that kind of stuff. The US has tons of it. Australia is an island, so they track every person that comes in and out. My sister went there to live there and work there, and they could have gone there on a visitor visa, but unless you can show them your flight ticket back, they're probably going to deny you entry into the country. Canada, people come here and they just stay.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the best indicators of population growth is actually cell phone user growth. So how many SIM cards is TELUS and Virgin and Bell and Rogers actually issuing, and is that number growing? And if it's growing, that's an indication that your population's growing, right? Even though you don't actually know how many people came here on student visas or temporary work visas and then never left the country. But if there's more cell phone users this year than last year, well, then we probably grew because there's more people with cell phones, right?
That's interesting.
And
You'd never think to track that piece of data, or that it would be so telling.
That's one of the biggest indicators. So right now there's almost no population growth. Meanwhile, 2023, our population in Canada grew by 1 million people. That might not sound like a lot, but during Harper's administration, I just heard it on a podcast literally when I was driving here from my office, 247,000, I think, was the largest year immigration population growth, essentially. We did over 1 million in 2023. Now they're turning that tap down, and I think it's going to be under 400,000 this year. But what was driving a lot of the growth, the reason why investors were flipping contracts on pre-construction condos, is because we were a country of like 37 million. We used to be 1/10 of the United States population. Right now we're 8.5. I don't know how you say that as a fraction or whatever, but we're no longer 10%. We're like whatever that works out to, 15 or 7%. And it was by immigration. It wasn't by our birth rate. So we're bringing all these people here. We need somewhere for them to live. Okay, well, what can we build really quickly that's affordable? Well, build rental units, condos and rental units, right? And so that's who we were building them for. Now immigration has turned down. Interest rates went up. The value of the condos fell. So now the investors are fleeing. So now you just have a whole bunch of condos. And that's what's messing with the whole, I guess, inventory issue that's arising in the GTA right now, as it was driven by mostly condos.
But now, and I agree with everything you just said. I mean, and it if only, we had the benefit of hindsight, right? Because it's like, okay, you guys did, everything to lead up to what's happening today. Like this should have been expected, really.
The banks required it, and it was actually ended up being the same undoing of it.
Yeah.
I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I was going to ask you another question that, so to immigration, now, and I've been, so Ben Rabideau, first of all, is great, and I was really appreciative when you invited me, when you had him down here. That was really cool.
We're having him again in February.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll be there. I enjoyed that. You're right. There isn't a lot of great Canadian content. He does a good job. So I've been, following the immigration trends all along. What I so my question is, why did we just kind of, why did the floodgates just kind of open? And was it, strategic? Like, did we need that, for productivity reasons? I mean, if you measure just GDP and not GDP per capita, I mean, okay, immigration was really kind of skewing things and call it the government's favor. And then they just shut the door on it. Well, why? Is it just political pressures? And if they did,
it's because Canadians can't afford to buy houses anymore.
Yeah.
Right now it's unpopular.
Yeah, exactly. And but okay, so now productivity is we're gonna see that, right? I mean, productivity should tank if the data's correct.
Yeah.
So we're in this, like, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know where this ends. Like, it's just this cycle that I can't figure out what the end game is here.
Yeah, I mean, without getting really, I've been accused of being a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, me too.
If you want to get really political, all that kind of stuff, you could say, okay, well, was immigration to help bring in voters and sway that demographic to where you could make that argument, but without going there, there was the huge green push, right? Canada's got a ton of natural resources, and we're saying, yeah, you know what? I know we have a ton of oil, but we should probably leave the oil in the ground. Well, that's a lot of our productivity. Like, you go to Alberta, they don't have a provincial sales tax. Like, you could argue that Alberta helps carry the whole country.
Yeah.
And now we're saying, well, that's the one thing that we do really, really well, but we don't want to use that anymore, right? And you look at what happened in Germany. So you got people coming in there and saying, yeah, we need green, 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 green. So let's get rid of everything that's oil burning, go to all this kind of stuff. We want to get rid of the nuclear power stations. We got to use natural gas. Well, kind of convenient that Canada stopped shipping natural gas, and now they need it from Russia. Well, who told them that they needed to get rid of the nuclear plant? Like,
yeah.
Anyways, so productivity per capita has gone down, but if you just look at GDP as a whole, it was going up. So it's like, oh, well, you could make the argument that our liberal government really knew what they were doing, like tough economic times, COVID, all that kind of stuff. GDP kept going up, but GDP per capita is much more important, right? Is how much is the output per person actually going up? And if it's not, well, then are we actually doing anything, or are we just creating government jobs?
Yeah.
Or are we giving out money
on that too? Hey, the number of government jobs that were created as a percentage of, like,
40%.
Is that what? Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, the federal government workforce, I believe the stats grew by 40% since COVID. Like the start of it.
Now, I did just see they're supposed to be cutting
huge cutbacks,
federal jobs, but
yeah,
interesting times. I don't know.
Okay, so to make that conversation local, so it was investors that were buying the condos in Toronto. Now it's not. So when a market is down or has gone down or is going down, and you could argue some parts of the province and the country are still going down, people are asking me, well, when's winds are going to stop going down, or is the crash still coming? The crash was in 2022. Our prices dropped by like 30%. They've since normalized, and they've stayed there for 3 years. So I don't think there's a big crash coming. I think the crash already happened. Other parts of Canada, you could say it's already happened. But good market, bad market, and in between, there's always going to be people that need to transact. It's going to be first-time home buyers, people moving up because they're having kids, unfortunately, death and divorce, illness, disability, whatever. Good market, bad market, there's always a need for some people to move. It's just the number of transactions are less in a bad market because you don't move unless you have to. So who are the people that are transacting in Windsor, Essex right now? I would imagine the investor demographic is minuscule compared to what it was, say, 2010 to 2020.
I would agree. So what I have found kind of fascinating is, so you're right, there's a first-time home buyers market that wants to, transact. There's still that, baby boomer population who wants to, transact on, downside
Yep.
to downsize. And so there's the people that want to transact, I find, still want homes. Like they still want a single family, detached home. Um, and that investor population, you're right, has kind of disappeared, or it's a whole lot less now. But all the incentives and all the activity is still in that, those higher density projects, right? Which typically are rentals.
Yeah.
So I think there's, like, if I look on my end, on the financing end, we do a lot of, there's a lot of CMHC programs right now that are out there to, it's the MLI Select program, all these
Built for purpose rentals.
exactly. So, the developers and investors that are coming to us, well, they're coming to us for that purpose, right? Because that's the only thing that makes sense right now for them financially, to pursue. And people don't. If you're a full-time developer, a full-time investor, you don't want to sit on your hands. You want to keep working. They've been sitting on their hands for a couple years now.
Yeah.
So, and what do? They you follow the easy money. And right now the easy money is through these government programs. And to your point, condos, you need pre-sales. Well,
If you're going to build them.
If you're going to build them, the purpose-built rentals, you don't necessarily need it. You don't need those pre-sales. So as long as you can get that, that CMHC insurance approval, well then, if the numbers work, the market rents work, then you can go ahead and start building. So that's where all the focus seems to be, or the activity seems to be. But I think there's a disconnect with, what locally anyways. I mean, this, Canada's a big place. It changes, depending on where you are. In Toronto, maybe there is still a huge need for rentals. There probably is. Here, I don't see it. But again, even locally, that's where the developers are focused, is on the purpose-built rentals, not the single-family homes, not the semi-detached.
Yeah, I do see the need for it a little bit, because what we see a lot of right now is the boomers wanting to downsize. It costs you money to downsize right now.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a home that you built in the 80s or the 90s for your family when it was growing, and you're looking at selling it now, well, unless you've redone the whole thing, people now want 9-foot and 10-foot ceilings, in-floor heat. Well, you can change a lot of things about a house, but you can't exactly install 9-foot ceilings if they were always 8, right? And so they might get their $700,000 or $800,000 or $900,000 for this, really nice subdivision, 80-foot lot, like great home, 2-car garage where they raise the family. But a lot of the millennials that would potentially buy that home, they want all the oak painted white, right? They'll pull out the wood cupboards and put in IKEA cupboards just because it doesn't fit their look and all that kind of stuff. And they're going, well, I should be getting this for it, but the purchaser doesn't want to pay that because they want something totally updated. So they end up selling it for slightly less than they had hoped for, or maybe even substantially. And then they go, okay, well, I'm going to go buy a townhome. Well, now that they're making this move, they haven't moved in 30 years or 40 years. Well, they want something nice and brand new. And so townhomes have, become really, really nice here in Windsor, Essex over the last 10 years. Like, they're beautiful. Everything that you'd expect in a single family home now in the semi. You got the ensuite, the walk-in closet, the pantry off the kitchen, big wide open layout with a big island in the all that kind of stuff. Only now the semi or the townhome is $700,000 or $800,000. So by the time they pay lawyers, land transfer tax, realtors, everybody else, they don't want to come see Vince and get a mortgage because they're not working anymore. Mortgages don't go great when you don't have an income, right? So why would I sell my big estate family home for $900,000 to buy this townhome for $800,000, not actually make $100,000 because I'm going to kiss that and everything else, the fees associated with moving, plus the townhome's going to need appliances and drapery, and it didn't have a concrete driveway and all that kind of stuff. So now if you can present an option where, well, you can go into a luxury rental, apartment style, it looks like a condominium. It's going to cost you $2,500 or $3,000 a month. They could go to their wealth manager and, maybe tie up 70% of, let's call it $500,000 in sale proceeds. They could tie that up in a GIC at 4% maybe, and all of a sudden they're making $20,000 a year without touching the principal. That's paying $20,000 of their $30,000 in rent. Well, maybe could they put 60 or 70% of it in GIC and the other 30, 40 in a high growth mutual fund, or dabble in private mortgages, or whatever, right? Now all of a sudden cover their full rent. So I actually see a case for now the built for purpose rentals, where maybe they started being built for young people, new to the country, immigrants, maybe people that are working here on contract, whatever. I think we're going to start building them now, and at least the trend I've seen for the Canadian baby boomers, whether they're widowed or empty nesters, great opportunity for them to take the sale proceeds from their house and put it into an investment that now pays for their rent.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I honestly have a real life example just recently. My buddy's mom just went through this exact same, process, and the conclusion was, well, she recently widowed, 3,000 square foot home in LaSalle, probably about 25, 30-year-old home. She wants to downsize. Her husband took care of, the pool, the grass, all of that. She wants nothing to do with that. Yeah, the snow.
Sprinklers, yeah.
She found a nice private sale townhouse in Seven Lakes area. So she was perfect. She thought she, hit the jackpot. Actually, she did get a price. I don't remember exactly the price, but got a pretty decent deal on the townhouse. So I thought. But fortunately, she put a condition to sell, because it turns out in the end she was going to be, in the hole about close to $200,000
to downsize from the 3,000 square foot home into a townhome.
Yeah. Like, to the point where, to your point earlier, like, she was talking to me about a mortgage on that townhouse, and
as a retired widow.
Yeah, and fortunately, her son's one of my best friends, and he's pretty savvy financially, and the two of us are kind of like, just don't do it, do it. So she didn't go through with it. So I guess where my head goes is, hopefully, and I'm optimistic and confident that the private market always seems to kind of figure things out, but I think at the moment we're missing that that, call it, that luxury rental that would appeal to her. And I think that's probably an
$4,500.
Yeah, exactly.
So she still wants a driveway, still wants a garage, not ready for the apartment yet, but not too many people are renting out those kinds of semis and townhomes, right?
Yeah. So there's certainly an opportunity there for somebody, and it will happen. Like I said, I feel like we're a lot of really good developers, investors, real estate professionals in this town. It'll get figured out. Just
as long as the dollars make sense, like you said, the private market figures it out. And the problem we're facing right now is, although the resale market came down in 2022 as the rates came up, cost of construction has not gotten less, and frankly, it's not going to happen.
No,
right? It's mostly union shops that are servicing the developments. The price per acre of land has not gotten cheaper. Materials, whether it's bricks or plumbing or electrical, is not getting cheaper. Labor costs are not going down. So even though the resale market has come down to earth and in a place that makes sense because the market's figured it out, the market's the market. Cost of construction hasn't, and neither has land servicing. So we went from $40,000 to $80,000 lots. We thought that was a huge jump back in the early teens. Well, now all of a sudden a subdivision lot is going for anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 to $8,000 a front foot.
Yeah.
Right, when they used to be 2 or 3 historically, and you used to get builders terms on them, so 0% for 1 or 2 years from the developer to the builder. Well, now there's lots that are going power of sale, and actually trading for less than they were originally purchased for, if they were purchased during the craziness of COVID. And so the thing is, when your basis is a lot is $300,000, so say 60-foot lot, $5,000 front foot, $300,000 lot. The neighborhood covenants in most of these developments are such that you can't build a home under 1,800 square feet or 2,000 square feet. They got to be all brick, stone, stucco. They got to have a 2-car garage. Well, now all of a sudden the builders are in this part where they go, we'd love to build a cheaper house, but our hands are tied because we've got $300,000 tied up in land. Development fees are the highest they've ever been. There's talk about some HST coming off for first-time home buyers, but the reality is we still can't build single-family homes in Windsor, Essex under $800,000-$900,000 right now, unless we had lots that we purchased for 70 or 80.
Yeah.
So That's my case for why I don't think, especially the single family, the semi-detached home market, I don't think it's going to fall any further yet because it's so far still right now from the cost of new construction. Over time, growing population, whether it's from birth rate or immigration, people want a house with some grass and a fence, and we're not building any of those.
No, you're spot on. It's almost like I read somewhere that the single family home is like a unicorn now. One day will be viewed as like, the way back in the day, people would, come to Canada and, buy up farmland that eventually, increased in value and was their like jackpot. You could say the same.
Made their retirement.
Yeah, you could say the same about the single family home, over the last so many years. Because
just home ownership in general.
Yeah,
the rate's so much lower than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wild. It's crazy to see that that shift in just how we live.
Yeah,
like it's wild.
Yeah. Now that being said, you still dealing with some first-time home buyers? Can a 20-something singular couple still get into the housing market today?
Yeah, I mean, of course they can. The hardest part is, I mean, if they have the down payment, that's really what it comes down to, right? It's
usually got the income.
Yeah, the incomes, especially rates have kind of, they've come down. I don't want to say they're low, but they're not high either, right? They're at a good place.
Historically, they're great.
Historically, they're low. Yeah, not what they were in 2021, but that's okay. This is probably a healthier interest rate environment. So yeah, usually from an income perspective, they're fine. It just comes down to the down payment. Like we get a lot of calls, from people just, okay, are there programs out there that, I can get the down payment? I can, whether it's a grant or, you get, and unfortunately, no, that program is mom and dad, hopefully, or a friend or relative, I don't know. That's the that's what's holding people, from, or keeping them from home ownership. Otherwise, incomes have, I think, generally have gone up, have kept pace to a certain extent.
Maybe not fully with the price of housing, but like that being said, in Windsor, if you're not like, hey, my first home has to be what I grew up in, if you have your standards fairly low, like my first house was not a good house. It needed a lot of work, but I put my standards pretty low because I was like, I just need to get into the market. Once I'm in the market, I can worry about buying a nicer home later. But like, you can still buy a home in Windsor under $300,000, under $350,000. There's plenty to choose from right now, under $400,000 and $500,000. It's competitive, and you might have to do your home inspection ahead of time and get the pre-approval done with your lender beforehand. You got to be disciplined, save up your down payment, all that kind of stuff. But first-time home buyers spending $350,000, you can buy with 5% down. You'll be exempt from the land transfer tax at $350,000. You can still do it. You just can't be too picky about what you're buying. You got to get on the ladder.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, listen, we're asset prices aren't as a whole aren't going down. I mean, let's see, the asset markets have corrections, but for the most part, 10 years from now, I promise you that $300,000 house will be more than it is today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you that just you got to get in the game. You got to own something tangible.
Yeah. Which is who your private lenders are on the private side, right?
Yeah.
That's the concept they get.
Yeah, exactly. You're 100% right. But yeah, no, I think the it's the first time home buyer is I sympathize with them for sure, because it is frustrating. But to your point, it's and I didn't realize that. Like, I didn't realize there's still in Windsor, Essex a lot of inventory under.
Not a lot.
Okay.
Just to clarify, not a lot, but there is some. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, that's doable. When you think 5%, that's the number, right? You got to come up with a 5% down payment. So 300,000. I mean, what is that? 15,000, right?
Yeah.
That's not a. I'm not saying it's easy to save 15,000, but it's achievable.
With discipline, it can be done. Yeah. Now flipping that to the commercial side, who's buying commercial right now? Like, if I drive up and down here on Church Road, it's a lot of REITs, I feel like, or investment funds. It's not as much as the mom and pop, but as far as purchasing, existing buildings or expanding on current facilities, all that kind of stuff, is it local business owners?
Yeah, you're so there's going back to, private mortgages, a lot of the same, high net worth individuals who want to, passively invest in mortgages, also, have the wherewithal to invest in commercial property. Um, we're financing a lot of medical buildings right now, so
Okay.
you're seeing a lot of, healthcare professionals come together as a group and buy buildings and, put their own practices in there.
And a
Um,
pharmacy to help pay the rent.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's that's actually a pretty common model where, the pharmacist will strategically align himself with a group of doctors. They go in
Yep.
and buy the building together, or the pharmacists will, the doctors will get to rent for a favorable uh, lease rate, and the pharmacy benefits from having those doctors in there. So that's actually a very common model. Yeah, but listen, I think everybody who has money knows that, okay, it's not doing much for me, in a bank account, in a savings account, in a GIC. So they're looking to get it in play, right?
And if I'm paying for a lease, how much different is it to pay a mortgage payment?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think over a short period of time, it's not that much different
Mm-hmm.
because I mean we had double digit gains year after year after year. That's not normal.
No.
But like my mom ran a small business and her rent stayed forever at like $1,500. Mind you, small town Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
For her, that one made sense leasing. It would have been nice to own the building because after 30 years, it would have been paid for and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But the cost of ownership would have gone up, whereas her lease didn't go up at the same rate the cost of ownership did. But if you're making a hefty mortgage payment, you got to sit there at some point and go, could I own the building, or with other tenants paying me rent, could
Yeah.
we,
Mm-hmm.
make this work? And so it's one thing to make a retirement plan based on selling the business, but what if we can turn our lease payments into mortgage payments too?
Yeah, yeah. And to your point, yeah, that's another, demographic, is that the business owner who wants to get into an owner occupied property. I'm seeing a lot of
Yeah.
that right now. And maybe it's just because there's, I don't know if it's whether, rates, because the rates coming down, or maybe there's more inventory, more opportunity, but
Plus rents have gone up just recently. Like the cost of leasing has gone up substantially,
Mhm.
again, because new construction's so expensive.
okay. And then on the financing side, that's another um, area where the banks are getting aggressive, is financing those owner occupied buildings. They like that.
Yeah.
Similar to, a house where, somebody is they're going to make their payments, as long as they have the ability, they will make their payments. I think the banks look at the owner occupied borrower the same way. If that's where your business resides, you're going to do whatever it takes to keep making that payment. So they'll finance those
They
at
associate
higher loan
less
to value.
risk when it's owner occupied.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That makes a ton of sense. Been a great conversation so far. Any other directions you want to go off in?
I don't know. This is yeah, I could go all day. You make it easy, Cody. You're good at this.
Okay.
What other directions?
So we talked about commercial, we talked about privates, administration, brokering, first-time home buyers, condos, single family, building. I mean that covers most of the gamut right there.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe last one I could think of, unless you got any more, is Americans selling Canadian property and Canadians buying American property. Are you seeing an increase or a decrease in that, or how much of that would come through a mortgage brokerage?
So seeing it again from some of the high net worth individuals I deal with, our investors, there has been over the last couple of years a trend to buy property, and especially in Florida,
Tennessee,
Texas. Seen that too. So yeah, I mean, not that we're facilitating any of that, but I'm seeing it happen, and I think that's just one. It's okay, we got to put money in play, and that's a way to diversify. Two, when values went crazy here, maybe they saw more opportunity stateside. But there's certainly
exposure to U.S. dollar.
Exposure to U.S. dollar, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's a real thing. Are you seeing the same?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, so the boomers that had condos, the snowbirds, I actually see a lot of them selling their places, whether it's in Florida and it's politics and it's tariffs and all that kind of stuff. But there's a big push for business owners to want to start working on an E2 visa.
Yeah.
It's hard to cash flow almost any kind of rental property right now in Ontario. You got to be really scrutinous. It can be done, but it's tougher. So there's a lot of Canadian investors that are looking to different cities, whether they're huge metro markets or subsects of them. There's just a lot of investment happening in the States, but there's so many homes that, yeah, their average home price went up substantially too. It didn't go up like Canadians did. And so some people are still saying that you can actually cash flow a single family home depending on the market that you're in. I would assume you're not going to do it in New York City, but maybe in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
Right. So we're seeing some of that. Condos in Florida, a lot less attractive than they used to be. Insurance has gone up a lot with hurricanes. There was one building, I think, in Miami that collapsed. I mean, with Florida, you got a lot of retirees. They want to keep their condo fees low, but you're dealing with a lot of salt and wind from the Atlantic Ocean, from hurricanes, all that kind of stuff. So they're having to go through a lot of studies, and the condo fees are going up like crazy to make sure that these buildings are sustainable into the future. So the carrying cost of condos is going up quite a bit. It'd be interesting to see. I heard Florida's trying to get rid of property taxes in the state, and I'm like, well, that'd be pretty amazing. I could help offset the increase in insurance costs, but we'll see.
Yeah, so, wouldn't that be wild, eh?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see it here.
No, I think we might go the opposite direction. Yeah. Taxes are only going one way. It's up.
Yep.
You mentioned before, like the development fees. I don't know if this is still a real figure, but at one point they were saying on a single family home, development fees are probably somewhere between 30 and 35%.
31 to 36 is the number I'm hearing right
31
now.
31 to 36.
Yeah. So if your lot's 300,000 and the taxes are 33% of the value, and it's a $900,000 home, that means the labor and materials 300,000 of that 900,000, which is insanity.
That is insanity.
Yeah.
And that's, the average person, I don't know if they realize that's tax. that's what that is. That's, taxes aren't just your property taxes.
Yeah. I was at a conference in Toronto last week or 2 weeks ago, and Ben Tal from CIBC was there. Super interesting economist to listen to.
Yeah.
And he said he was talking with Olivia Chow, the mayor of Toronto. And he said, well, what's like just your city? So this is taking into account the province and the federal government. What would your cost per home, like what are your development charges on one home, one unit, condo, single family, semi, whatever? She said, well, $75,000. And he goes, wow, that's really high. He goes, I don't have a calculator on me, but how much would your city generate if you sold 0 permits at $75,000? How much money would that be? Well, the answer is 0, right? And
Great question.
I understand that receiving X number of permits times $75,000 is a great revenue source for your city, but they're so high that eventually there's going to be no development permits pulled. You guys need to bring these down if you want to keep that revenue coming into the future. I don't think she liked that.
No,
but anyways, it was a great point made.
Oftentimes, simple math gets lost when you throw politics and ideologies into it.
Historically, you got 1,000 development permits. Mm-hmm. Well, it's $75,000. City's lacking a little bit of money. Well, why don't we make those permits $80,000 instead of $75,000? An extra $5,000 over 1,000 permits. You know what? That's a good chunk of money coming into the city. Quick math, whether that's 50 million or whatever that was, anyways, right?
Yeah.
But what if the number of permits goes from 1,000 to 500? That $5,000 increase is actually a huge hole in your future budget moving forward too. So,
yeah, Ben Tals, he's so I worked at CIBC. It was my first commercial banking job, and I became a huge fan of him early on. Like he is an entertaining economist.
He's got a good way to explain it, and he was totally right. He's like, Canadians are funny. Like, we're not even aware of what's going on in Canada. We just watch U.S. politics.
Yeah.
And we're making all of our decisions based on that. And he goes, we don't actually know what's going on here. But anyways, I've taken up a lot of your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me today, Vince. If anybody's not aware of you or hasn't followed UCC, where would they find more information about UCC Mortgage Co?
On where I guess we're on all the social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn. I do a weekly newsletter. You can subscribe to that through our website, UCCMortgageCo.com. And Cody, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate this. This is fun.
No problem.
Good chat.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the show, folks. Please keep in mind that this show is not offering legal, financial, or accounting advice, but rather opinions and experiences in the world of real estate from the host and the guests. If you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and share with your friends and colleagues. And if you think that there's someone that needs to be on this show, please feel free to connect them with me. Or if there's a topic that should be discussed, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much, and bye for now.